In this video, we're going to talk about adding stock to a drawing. So I have a simple drawing here, just a flat drawing, and I'm going to go into the machine browser under programs and under the stock options menu here. I'm going to pull this down and I want to add a box stock. That's the most common. The first piece that I'm going to add is where the corner is going to be indicated. So when I set my machine up, am I zeroing the machine at the top of the stock or the bottom of the stock? Which corner am I orienting the machine? Typically, we're going to orient between these two corners, and if I zero off the top of the stock, I will select this one. If I zero off the table, I'll select this one. Both have their pros and cons. Typical is to zero off the top, so that's going to put the stock below it. Notice that this part is sitting away from our 0 point. This is our world 0 here for X and Y and Z, and we're about 2 inches over in both directions, and that's what it's going to try to do here. For coordinates for the corners, it's looking at 1.7 for the X and 1.26 for the Y, and that's where it calculated that the corner of this box should be so that the stock encompasses the drawing. Now typically I want my stock to be at the 0 point for the machine, so I'm going to set those both to 0, and now you'll see how this shifts over to our 0 point. Now I can increase the dimensions of the box to encompass my part. I can also come in here and move my part over so I'm not wasting all of this stock. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit cancel on this. I'm going to select my part and I'm going to move it closer to my 0 point, leaving enough room around for my hold downs or screws or however I'm going to hold this piece. I'll go back to box stock and set my corner at 0 again. And now when I look at it, now it's pretty close, but it's still hanging over the edges a little bit, so I need to change my length. So I'm going to try this at 8.5. My width is going to be 6, and I'm cutting this out of 1-inch stock. So click over, and now we can look at this. I'm gonna hit OK. Now my stock disappeared, so to get that back, down here in the machining browser, these little icons we talked about before, stock visibility, turns that back on. So now I can rotate this part, look at it from above, make sure I've got enough material. Might have a little problem here with the cutter blowing out the sides. So if I'm holding it down by the corners, that shouldn't be an issue, but I can always go back into the stock option and I could add a little bit to the side. So now I've got more clearance around that piece. So that's how I can orient the part to the box. If I go back and look and watch that this part is zeroed up at the top corner, so that is why the stock is going below the work. So if I rotate this again, notice how my stock is going from here down is my Z, and that's having the model on top. If I change it to the bottom, the stock is going to move up to the top. So again, depends on where you zero the tool on the physical machine for this. These are the most common pieces. If I know the exact dimension of the stock, I always go to here. If I'm not sure of the dimensions, that I think it might be 3/4, but it might be a little thinner, it might be a little thicker, it's more accurate to zero to the bed of the machine. So you just have to make that decision. Additionally, once we have the stock in place, we can actually go under the align menu and align the stock. And with this, I can pull my part up to the center of it, so now it's kind of floating in the middle of the piece. I can have it at the bottom, I can have it at the top, and I can also change the orientation so that it centers up completely. So I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm going to rotate this slightly. So notice there's more stock on this side, there's less stock here, and more stock here. Without moving the stock, I can come into align stock, and say center, and when I hit OK, notice now it's moved my part so that there's equal on all sides. So that's a real nice thing if you've got like a piece of plywood or MDF down and you want a piece moved to the center of it, that align stock does that. Hit OK, and we're ready to start making cuts.